when we were driving. I was thinking. Ok, buenas tardes. Muy bienvenidos a todos ustedes y los en línea. Muchas gracias por venir. Yo soy Angela McCracken. ¿Sí me escuchan? Sí, ok. La directora de la oficina de la Universidad del Sur de California en México. Soy el enlace entre la universidad y las instituciones en México. Tenemos algunos convenios de qué hablar hoy que son muy buenos para los estudiantes de México. Esperamos que aprovechen de ellos. Y hoy tenemos para hablar de los programas de estudios que entran a estos convenios, la doctora Janet Denhardt, directora de la Facultad de Políticas Públicas, sede Sacramento, en el estado de California, y la maestra Carol Rush, que es decana asociada de Asuntos de Estudiantes en la sede de Los Ángeles, de la Facultad de Políticas Públicas de la Universidad del Sur de California. Y hasta el final yo me presentaré otra vez para tomar preguntas y explicar un poco más de los convenios. Pero a grandes rasgos son convenios con CONACYT, FUNED y FIDER y la Facultad de Price School of Public Policy, que permiten, solicitando a cada institución a un estudiante financiar con una combinación de beca y crédito sus estudios en una maestría, incluyendo colegiatura y manutención. Entonces voy a pasar primero a la maestra Rush. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Ángela. Buenas tardes, me llamo Carol Rush. Hablo solamente un poco de español, entonces voy a hablar en inglés, okay? Advance. What I'm going to do over the next 45 minutes or so is show you a picture slideshow of the University of Southern California, the Price School, and the areas surrounding our campuses in both Los Angeles and Sacramento. So to get us started, the University of Southern California is the oldest and largest private research university in the western part of the United States. We were founded in 1880, and we enroll 42,000 students at USC. A little more than half of the students are graduate students, and 24,000 of the students are undergraduate students. USC is a member of the American Association of Universities, which is an association of 62 of the leading private research universities throughout the United States and Canada. So research really is the hallmark of what we're doing at USC. And when I get to the part about the Price School, I will demonstrate some of the impact that the research we're having on public policy making. Okay, the Price School is one of the oldest schools of public policy in the country. It was founded in 1929, and we offer programs in both Los Angeles, which is our main campus, the University Park campus, as well as in Sacramento. Now, in 2011, our school received a very generous gift in the name of Sol Price. Now, Sol Price's grandson graduated from the Price School in 2011. He received our bachelor's degree, and his father came to our ceremony and was very touched by our mission and the sense of community that we had developed among Price. And this gentleman here is the founder of Price Club, which eventually became Costco, which I believe you have here in Mexico. And he has been a developer, a philanthropist. He cares about good governance, quality and access to healthcare, and has put a lot of his energy into redeveloping an area in San Diego called City Heights. Well, when he learned about our school, he called the president of USC and said, I want to make a major gift to that school. Well, the short story is 7 months later, he had given, or his family had given us $50 million. And that money, which is named our school, so we will forever be called the Price School of Public Policy, and the money is used for student scholarships, for hiring faculty, and for student projects. So this is providing a lot of resources for students. Okay, Ralph and Goldie Lewis Hall is home of the Price School. It's located in Los Angeles, California. And my office, for those of you who come to visit, you walk in the front door, you turn left, and I am kind of over here, just off the screen. And so if you do come visit, come look me up. We enroll many students from all over the country and all over the world, and I would love to welcome you to Los Angeles. Our building is new. It was built in 1999. The classrooms all have built-in equipment. It's wireless. And so a lot of what you're going to be doing as students in the class is doing presentations, either individually or groups. And so when the classes aren't being used for classrooms, you can certainly come in and practice. So it's a nice, most of the students' classes are in this building. My colleague Janet Denhardt will talk to you a little bit about the Sacramento Center.
USC opened its Sacramento Center over 40 years ago in recognition of the fact that the state of California plays a pivotal role in solving some of society's most pressing problems. And we felt like that we needed to be near state policymakers to do that. We offer the entire Master's of Public Administration program in Sacramento. It's structured so that working professionals can earn their degree at the same time that they work. We also provide policy advice to state lawmakers, and we also have a very large executive education program. This is something I didn't actually know before I moved to California 2 years ago, that California, if it were its own country, would be the 8th largest country in the world. Our gross state product is over $2 trillion, which is about 1/7 of the United States gross national product. So California is a very central point for understanding what's going on in the United States, and is in the policy leader in a lot of areas, including the environment and others. Because of our size and the fact that California and Mexico have a lot of common political and economic interests, we really felt that having the MPA in Sacramento would be important, and we think it would be very attractive to Mexican students.
Next slide. Next. Okay, Dean Jack Knott is the Dean of the Price School, and the mission of the Price School is to improve the quality of life for people and their communities worldwide. And one of Dean Knott's big initiatives is globalization. Since he's been dean, our international student enrollment has increased from 5% to 18%, although we want to grow our population of students from Mexico. We have 8 students from Mexico currently enrolled in the Price School. Next slide. Next. Okay, I mentioned that USC enrolls 42,000 students. The Price School is small. There's only 1,700 students in the school. And so it's a small community. You get to know the students in the classes. You go through as a cohort. I mentioned that 18% are from foreign countries, and our student population represents 38 different countries. Half of our students are female. And 45% of our students are from outside of California. So if you do choose to join us, you're going to be joining a group of people who are not familiar with the ways of California and Los Angeles, which are often a little different than what you may be used to here, and definitely different than what many of the states in the United States are like. Next slide. We have 75 full-time faculty in the school, and they represent the breadth and depth. Next slide. Now, I've chosen 6 to highlight. And the woman at the top, Nicola Sparza, she's one of our leading experts in the nonprofit area. The guy down here is a demographer, and he's one of our experts in immigration policy. And you may have heard of him, Dal Myers. He's in the news a lot. The guy in the center in the bottom, Richard Green, is our expert in real estate finance. And so when you're learning about real estate markets or hearing about financing in real estate, which I know a lot is going on here, you may have heard of Richard Green. The gentleman in the center, Roberto Suro, he directs the Tomas Rivera Policy Institute, which is doing a lot of research on immigration, and particularly looking at health and education issues that affect the immigrant population. The guy on the far slide is Raphael Bostic. He used to direct the Master of Real Estate Development program. He served in the Obama administration. He was the Undersecretary for Policy for the Housing and Urban Development Department. He's now directing our Center on Governance, and so he really has a good sense of all aspects of our school. And then Emma Aguila is one of our new faculty members. She will have been with us a year as of January. She comes to us from the RAND Corporation, and she's an expert in economics of aging and Latin American social policy and has done a lot of work here in Mexico. So these are just some people that are researching areas that you may be interested in. Next slide. We offer academic programs in 6 different areas, and the way we like to describe our graduates is they plan the communities, they build the communities, they write and analyze the laws of the communities, they manage the services to the public, and they're looking at alternative sources of providing services to the public, recognizing that government can't provide all the services that the public needs. And then finally, we address many of the most pressing policy issues, including things like healthcare, transportation, environment, education, etc. Next slide. Our programs have been ranked number 6 in U.S. News and World Report's rankings of graduate public affairs rankings. And you can see from this slide that we also rank high in many of the specialty areas. Next slide. Now, what I'm going to do briefly is discuss the core master's programs in the Price School. Most are 2-year programs, and each one of these programs has a practical application component. We feel that it's important that students learn the theory, but also learn how to apply it. We find that they fare much better in the job market after they get the degree if they have this. So the Master of Planning is a 2-year master's program. The practical application component of this degree is during the final semester, students complete a comprehensive exam. And this exam is done for a client. So if everybody in this room were graduating this semester, a developer would come into the class and say, I'm developing this area of Los Angeles. And then you would have 3 days to write your recommendations for how the land should be developed, and you would do it from the perspective of your concentration. So if you were looking at transportation, you would make sure that there was the appropriate transportation for the needs of the community. If you emphasized economic development, you'd make sure there's enough capital and finance coming into the area to support the socioeconomic background of the community. So when students graduate, they have a final project that they can then go to an employer and say, I studied in Los Angeles, I received my master's degree in planning from USC, I did this recommendation for this developer or this planning agency, I had 3 days to do it, here's my recommendations, I presented my findings to the client accepted these recommendations. So we just find that it's a nice real world project for students to do that really helps them with their career later on. Next slide. Oops, went too far. Okay, the Master of Real Estate Development is the companion degree to this degree, and it is for people that have 3 to 5 years work experience that are interested in real estate development. And if you don't have your degree in real estate development, or if you don't have the work experience, don't worry, because within the Master of Planning that I just talked to you about, we offer a certificate in real estate development, which can prepare you for a career in real estate as well. But if you are in this program, the practical application component is very similar. It's a comprehensive exam that you have 3 days to do, and the emphasis of this exam really looks at the design, finance, and policy aspects of what you would do to develop this community. And in many years, the client for the Master of Planning graduates is the same as those for the Master of Real Estate Development. Next slide. Now, we're one of the few schools in the United States to offer both the MPA, the Master of Public Administration, and the Master of Public Policy. And we offer it for people that have our recent graduates have 3 to 5 years work experience, have multiple years of work experience. And that makes us a little different. Oftentimes, if a school offers both degrees, one is for people without a lot of work experience, and then the MPA is often the executive degree. Now, our differentiation is the Master of Public Policy is our analytical degree, and it's for individuals who want to do public policy analysis or do advocacy work. So there's a lot of quantitative analysis, a lot of economics, a lot of regression, operations research type courses. But you also get management in this degree. You can either take, well, there's a management requirement, you can take your electives in management, or you can do a certificate in public management to go along with the MPP. The practical application component of this degree is a client-based practicum. This is a year-long project, and you'll work in teams of 3 or 4 with a client on a project. So you guys might be working with the city of LA on an analysis of staffing needs for the mayor's office. And this group over here might be working with the United Way on, an analysis of one of their programs. So at the end of this class, you produce a written report for the client, you make the presentation to the client, and like the planning and the real estate students, you have an official, professionally prepared document that you can then take to an employer and say, I went to USC in Los Angeles, I did this for this particular client. Next slide. Now, the MPA, the Master of Public Administration degree, is the companion degree to the MPP. The MPA is our oldest degree. We've had it since the 1960s. It's also our largest degree. We have over 300 students in this program. And this program emphasizes a lot of management and leadership. So you're going to be taking courses in leadership, in public finance, in organizations, learning the types of organizations that comprise public service, as well as kind of organizational behavior within them. And like the MPP, you have electives. And this program has 2 practical application components. There's a required internship if you have less than 2 years work experience. And then there's the semester-long practicum, which is the client-based project, which, similar to the MPP, you work in teams with 4 or 5 on a project. And at the end of the semester, you have a professional product to go out to an employer and say, I did the MPA in either Los Angeles or Sacramento. So with this, I'm going to turn the program back to my colleague, Janet, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the unique features of doing the MPA in Sacramento.
Thank you, Carol. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, the MPA can be completed entirely in the Sacramento Center. Because we're so close to the state capitol, we're only 6 blocks from the state capitol. Our students interact a lot with state policymakers, and our students tend to be more full-time professional public servants. They're working for state agencies or federal agencies, local agencies, and because we schedule them on an intensive basis, you don't have to go to class every day, so you can continue to work while you go to school, which means that our population is a little bit older, a little bit further along in their career, but we have everything from people directly out of undergraduate school all the way to people in retirement who want to come back and study. The center just launched a California Mexican initiative that I'm really excited about. The idea is that we want to explore key policy issues that affect both Mexico and California, whether it be energy, education, transportation, economic development, public safety, or just broader questions of governance. There are 4 parts to this initiative. The first part is that I want to attract more Mexican students to come to Sacramento to earn their MPA. That's my #1 priority. I think that Mexican students would benefit from coming to Sacramento, and I know that Sacramento-based students would benefit from having you there. The second thing is that we are going to have a visiting professor from Mexico 1 semester every year, and that person will come to Sacramento to study cross-border policy issues of interest to that particular faculty member. The third thing that we do, and we will continue to do, is we have at least one major policy forum per year on California-Mexican relations. We're having one on Thursday that we've titled A Shared Energy Future, California and Mexico, to talk about the shared energy grid between San Diego and Mexico, and also to talk about the sort of collaborative policies that we can use to develop and share renewable energy. So that's going to be really exciting, and there's going to be a delegation from Mexico coming up, and that'll be a lot of fun. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to mention, for students who want to, this is not a requirement, but for students who want to come to Sacramento and be placed in a state agency, there will be options for an internship several days a week if you want to work with a state agency counterpart in the policy area that you're interested in.
Okay, next slide. Okay, we have a brand new degree. It's a master's degree in nonprofit leadership and management, and we will be admitting our first class in June of 2015. We expect to enroll about 35 students, and this is for people with 0 experience and people with 10 to 15 years experience. It's a one-year program. Like the MPA, it will have a client-based capstone project where you'll work in teams for a client on a particular project. This degree really came out of the MPA. We have a strong nonprofit specialization within the MPA, and we will continue that. We find that many of our graduates go in and out of government, nonprofit, and private sector jobs. However, there are a certain number of students that know for sure they want to work for an NGO. And so this degree really focuses more on the management of nonprofits. So this degree has a nonprofit finance course, which is a little different than the government finance course that the MPA students take. It also focuses on board management and fundraising, just to give some examples. So this is new. I'll be able to tell you more about it next summer and the students that are in it, but just the students that have inquired about it, I really think are going to be a very interesting group. Next slide. And then the final one of the final master's degrees I wanted to talk about is the Master of Health Administration program. And this is for people who are interested in quality of care, financing health care, and access to health care. There are 5 different areas in the MHA, the leadership and management area, the finance, policy, IT, and quality of care. And the practical application component of this degree is a 1,000-hour placement in a healthcare facility. And for those of you from Mexico who come do the program, you may want to do your placement here, and we will work with you to try to make that feasible for you to do that. Next slide. And then the final master's degree that I want to talk about, it's a one-year master's program. It's a Master of International Public Policy and Management degree. It's primarily for students from foreign countries. It doesn't get into the depth as the MPA or the MPP because it is a one-year program. But what's a little different about this program is that it focuses on the issues of the countries represented by the students in the class. Right now we have students from Thailand, China, Korea, Japan, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kazakhstan, to name a few. We do not have any from Latin America. We would like some from Mexico. But this is a one-year program, and it's a very much of a cohort program, and you're in classes with the other students. So if you're interested in this, it does require 3 to 5 years experience, but it's another option that we have. Next slide. And then we have 2 PhD programs, and these are for people that want to be university professors or work in think tanks. They're both very small and highly selective. We only admit 5 students per year in these programs. And as part of your admission, you're offered a 4-year funding package from us, which covers full tuition, health insurance, and then a living stipend. And part of the requirement will be that you will work as both a research assistant and a teaching assistant Since we expect you to go into teaching and or research careers, we want to make sure you have that experience before you graduate from us. Typically, the program takes 4 to 5 years to complete, and it's culminated with a dissertation. Next slide. Then we offer an undergraduate program. About a third of our students are in the undergraduate program. And then we offer several executive programs. I'm not going to get into them in too much detail right now, but if you have any questions about them, I'll answer those at the end. Next slide. And I'd mentioned that globalization was one of the key initiatives of Dean Knott. We mentioned the specialized international master's degree. We also offer international teaching labs, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I do want to mention one new program we're offering next summer, which is a program in Germany, which we're calling the Summer Program on the Rhine. It's a 5-week program where you'll be in Germany and you're going to be looking at comparative public administration. And you're going to be looking at the EU public administration, the United States, and then you would bring in your experiences here in Mexico. And we think that's going to be very attractive to both the master's and the undergraduate students. Next slide. Now, one of the things most of the master's students really enjoy doing are the international teaching labs. We offer 3 a year, one for sure in China, one for sure in Brazil, and then one someplace else. Last summer it was in Ireland. This coming summer it will be in Milan, Italy. And the way this program is structured is you would take a course in Los Angeles during your spring semester, and you would study the issues and a little bit about the culture of the country that you would be going to. And then in the summer, you would spend 2 weeks in that country. And the way we structure this is there is a partnering institution, a client, and a project. And so I'm going to use the Brazil lab, which is one that we've offered for many years, as the example. And what we've been looking at there, well, first of all, the partnering university has been Fundação Getúlio Vargas. The client has been the city of Rio de Janeiro. And the project has been looking at the economic development aspects of having 2 major sporting events in the city. So having the World Cup and the Olympics, and part of what they want to do is how do they use that money to improve the quality of life for the people living in the favelas or the slum areas. And in Brazil, 25% of the population lives in this. So the students have been researching other major cities that have had major sporting events. They've been looking at other cities that have successfully, provided a better quality of life for people in the poor areas. So it's been a very exciting project, which has been an ongoing project that we've been doing. But each one of these is a little different. Next year, we won't be in Hong Kong, we'll be in Beijing, and we'll be looking at assisted living facilities. And in Italy next summer, we're going to be in Milan, as I mentioned, and the focus will be on local government. So it's really an opportunity to not only work with students from another country, but you're also in this class with the planning, the real estate, the health, the public policy, and the public administration students. So you're really solving a major problem, an interdisciplinary problem from each of your perspectives. So if you come and you get the opportunity to do this, I encourage you to do so. Next slide. Student Affairs. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and you know me now. I oversee the Office of Recruitment and Admission, and so if you do apply, you will be applying through an office that's in the Price School. We'll talk a little bit later about the application process. Student Services, we oversee all of the scholarships and financial aid, and so if you are getting funding from CONACYT or some of the other options that Angela mentioned, we'll be working closely with my office with that. We oversee the student organizations. We have 22 student organizations that you might consider getting involved in. Career Services, we take career services very seriously in our school, and we really want to help position you so that you can get that job or that better job after you graduate from the program. And then finally, the Academic Support Services. I happen to have studied in a foreign country. I studied in Spain when I was a student and realized how difficult it is to study in another country, and just don't downplay that. And so we have a lot of services that are available. I I may have mentioned, and if I didn't, I should have, USC enrolls more international students than any other major or any other university in the United States. We enroll 9,000. So centrally and then through my office, we have a number of things in place to help students get acclimated to American culture, American classroom style, etc. Next slide. And I'd mentioned career services. They do a number of events for students to help them get to know the professional community in both Los Angeles and in Sacramento, and then connect with the alumni base when they return to their home country or hometown. Next. Research, I mentioned at the beginning, is the hallmark of the University of Southern California. We have many research centers, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to briefly touch upon a couple. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor of California for many years. A couple of years ago, he donated a very large sum of money to the Price School to establish the Schwarzenegger Institute in state and global policy. One of your former presidents, Vicente Fox, is on the board, and he does a number of symposiums focusing on things like immigration, climate, environment. Those are some of the issues that he cares deeply about. And part of what he did here is he brought together Senator Mike Bennett, a Democrat from Colorado, and Senator John McCain, a Republican from Arizona, who are two of the architects of the U.S. immigration reform, and had a very interesting discussion. Your former president came to this event and really engaged the students in what the issues are, and it gave many of the students and others in the audience the opportunity to really learn some of the issues and provide some feedback. One thing about the Schwarzenegger Institute, when they do events, the students are the only ones who get to ask the questions. So if you do come and you are interested in any of the topics that he's interested in, I encourage you to attend. The next slide. Another area of impact that we've had is in the air pollution area. Now, in the 1970s, air pollution in Los Angeles was very bad. We had a number of smog alerts. It was not safe for school children to be outside at recess. Doing athletics was difficult. And the School of Public Administration, which is a predecessor to the Price School, at that time established the Air Pollution Control Institute, and they brought together government and business leaders to come up with what do we do to make this air better. And so they came up with a set of regulations that were self-imposed. And our air isn't perfect these days, but it is a lot better than it was in the 1970s. Now, if you fast forward this to 2012, our former dean, Dan Mazmanian, who's one of our experts on environment and climate, has been invited by the government of China to go to Beijing to help China come up with solutions to their problem. Now, I was in China a couple weeks ago, and I have to say they have a long way to go. But that's the kind of impact that we're having. So because we're in California, because we're a border state to Mexico, because we're on the Pacific Ocean, and we see so many immigrants coming in from Asia and Southeast Asia, some of the policies and the issues that we're dealing with are really shaping U.S. policy as well as policy worldwide. And I think there's, as Janet mentioned, there's a lot of those issues that are facing both Mexico and California together. So it would just be nice to have more students from Mexico in the classes to help bring the Mexican perspective to the table. Next slide. And then finally in Sacramento, they had a forum recently on criminal justice realignment. Next slide. We have a student-run journal, and as a student, you can submit articles, and this is an online journal, and you can read about it online. Next slide. Now, the University Park campus is located in Los Angeles, and our campus features distinctive architecture, and many of your courses will be in the Von Kleinschmidt Center. Ivy-covered buildings. Next slide. And lots of green space. Now, how many of you are familiar with American football? Well, it's one of the big things at the universities in the United States, and it's a very big thing at USC. So prior to the game, people dress in red and yellow or cardinal and gold, which are our colors. They come to the park and they have picnics, they play games, Then they walk together over to the Coliseum, which is across the street from USC. The Coliseum holds 90,000 people. And I don't happen to be one who knows all the rules of the game, but it's really fun to go. So if you're not that familiar with the rules, don't worry. You still have a really good time. And if you do know the rules, that's great. You can teach those of us who don't. Next slide. Now, Los Angeles, we're located 7 kilometers from downtown Los Angeles. We're a city rich in ethnic and cultural diversity. Over 200 languages are spoken in Los Angeles Unified School District. And there's a lot to do that's very close to USC. Walt Disney Concert Hall is right downtown, and if you like music, it has the best acoustics of any music hall I've ever been to. Next slide. Disneyland is less than an hour to the south. Universal Studios is about 40 minutes away. And Staples Center, which is where the LA Lakers, the Clippers, and the Kings play, is right up the street. And this area has a lot of outdoor restaurants, bars, and it's a really fun place for students to hang out. Next slide. Now, Hollywood is 40 minutes away. And if you like upscale shopping, Beverly Hills is 45 minutes away. Next slide. And then finally, there's our climate is conducive to outdoor activities all year long. You can ride your bike along the Venice Beach Boardwalk. You can hike in the Santa Monica Mountains in Will Rogers State Park, which is in the city of Los Angeles city limits. Or if you like beach activity, you can go to Manhattan Beach, which is 45 minutes away, where you can play beach volleyball, or you can go surfing, or you can watch some of the big championships. And I'd now like to turn it back to Janet Denhardt.
Hello again. This is the Sacramento Center, and I thought you might like to see some pictures of Sacramento as well. Sacramento, as I said, the center is located 6 blocks from the Capitol, and it's in a downtown area that's very interesting and walkable. Lots of retail and cultural events and restaurants. So it makes it very easy for the students to get around the downtown area. Because USC Sacramento is smaller, it's more of a family environment. The classes are smaller, and everything that USC has in Sacramento is all in this building. So we sort of adopt people who come to that building, and they become a part of the Sacramento Trojan family, and we take very, very good care of them. Our students, because they take all of their classes together, they form very, very tight bonds. This is a picture here of students in one of my classes from last year having a baby shower for 2 of the students that had babies while they were in class. Now, they went to the hospital, but but they had babies while they were studying. Next slide. Sacramento is a medium-sized city. Los Angeles is a very large city, and there's something. Some people are drawn to large cities. Some people are drawn to sort of mid-sized cities. Probably the primary business of Sacramento is government. We have a lot of state employees, federal employees, local employees that live there. It is one of the fastest growing regions in the United States, and it is, as you can see, it's very beautiful. We have gorgeous gardens. Next slide. Next slide. The Mexican Consulate is located in Sacramento, and Consul General Carlos Gonzalez Gutierrez is a member of my board. He is very active in the Sacramento Center, and he has been instrumental in the development of this California-Mexico initiative that we've been talking about. And so he's very anxious for you to come to Sacramento too. Next slide. Sacramento is known as the city of trees. It has more trees per capita than any city in the world. It's one of the reasons that I love living there, is that our forefathers decided that this was going to be our namesake. And so they planted trees throughout the city, and it's really very beautiful. Next slide. The city is on the Sacramento River. And this is the Tower Bridge that connects Old Town with the new downtown. And it's also sort of the grand entrance to the city. You drive across this bridge, and then ahead of you down a long street is the state capitol. that you saw in the other picture. Next slide. This is a different view of the river. There are a lot of sports and water activities because of the location of the Sacramento River. And the old town with the old riverboat is located right on the water, and it's walking distance from where we are. Next slide. Carol?
Okay, I will close this. Our vision is for a better future, and if you share that vision, I hope you will consider studying with us. What I want to do now, go to the next slide, please. What I want to do now is talk just in general terms about the admission requirements, and then we'll discuss deadlines and then open it up for questions. So applying to USC is easy. There's an online application, and you can fill that out. That needs to be accompanied by an $85 application fee, and that can be paid with a credit card. We need official transcripts from all universities and colleges that you've attended, and we need your transcripts in their original language as well as an official translation into English. And then all of these graduate programs require a standardized test. Now, the GRE can be used for any one of the programs I mentioned. The GMAT can be used for a couple, and our website indicates which one will accept the GMAT. We also would like either the TOEFL or the IELTS scores. And then a supplemental application, which is tied to the online application for admission, and that gives us a sense of what areas of interest you are interested in. And then a resume, and that would include any employment you've had, any volunteer activities, research you've done, awards, whether they're academic or professional. 3 letters of recommendation. If you're a recent grad from college, we would prefer that they all be academic. If you're a working professional, it can be a combination of professional and academic references. And then a writing sample. And for the master's programs, there's 2 questions that you need to answer, which are on the web, but in essence, why do you want this degree, and what contribution do you hope to make to the field? And one of the things that we strongly recommend that you do is tie your writing to what the Price School is doing. So whether it's the research that the faculty are doing, the classes, any of the things we've talked about, like international labs or career services programs, that tells us that you're serious about USC and not just any planning, public policy, public administration program. And then finally, a financial statement indicating your ability to cover the first year of tuition and fees. Now, if you're a PhD student, the writing sample is a little different. You need to submit 2 items. One is a writing sample of something you've done, either published or not. And then the other is you need to present your research agenda. And then for the financial statement, since we have agreed to fund you for 4 years, a financial statement isn't required. Next slide. And then deadlines. Most of our students would like to be considered for our scholarships, and at the master's level, the deadline for applying for those is December 15. And then depending on the program, there's some differing final deadlines. About 25% of our master's students are receiving some sort of school-based scholarship assistance. The PhD has an earlier deadline. That deadline is December 1, and there's not a separate financial aid application process for that because, as we mentioned, we will fully fund you. And then the executive programs have some other deadlines. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and find out if there are, Angela, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about CONACYT and some of the other funding.
So one question, do these degrees require 40 or 48? Okay, so to calculate your tuition, you want to multiply the number of credits required by the program you're interested times the cost of the program. So right now, 1609 is the credit unit? 1602, okay. So 1602 times 40 credits would equal about $64,000 for tuition. That's a very large sum. At 48 credits comes out to about $68,000 for 2 years of tuition. The good news is that we have scholarships from the Price School of Public Policy, and they have agreements with CONACYT. We also have agreements with FIDER and FUNED. Each institution is operated separately. So our agreements for collaboration require that you apply to each institution and fulfill their requirements and be selected by each institution. But in the best of cases, you can receive, and currently we have a student receiving funding from at least three of the institutions to be able to cover full tuition and living expenses during the 2 years. Nobody lives super luxury in Los Angeles when they're doing their master's, usually. But they have enough to live on, and that's one of the requirements for the student visa. So the first step to be considered is to apply to the School of Public Policy. Look at the programs that are participating, just the 2-year masters, right? So in this program for scholarships, the 2-year master's programs, the Masters of Public Administration in Los Angeles or in Sacramento, the Master of Planning, the Master of Administration in Health Administration, and the Master in Public Policy. They require 2 years of classes in Los Angeles. So the deadline for that is December 15th. They will consider you automatically for the scholarships. And we have, in our agreement with CONACYT, we have written that we have up to 15 scholarships for Mexican students. You will be considered automatically, and when you get a letter of admission, they could give you a scholarship right away with your letter of admission, or you pay it later on. So with that letter of admission, you can apply to our partners, CONACYT, FUNED, and FIDER. The best collaborative agreement is with CONACYT because they give the most money and you don't have to pay it back. And another good thing is it's to support Mexican students who are going to bring the knowledge back to Mexico and build up Mexico. So with a letter of admission, CONACYT opens 2 convocatorias next year. So let's say you're applying this year and you're going to start school next August 2015. That's when everybody starts. Every year, August 2015, 2016, 2017, that's when you start school. So you have to apply about a year ahead of time, about 9 months ahead of time right now. And you send all of your requirements by December 15th. You will be under review for a couple of months, and they will let you know by about March 15th. If you don't hear by March 15th, you can write me and I will look into your case, because you need a little bit of time to go over that letter of admission and apply to CONACYT in the first convocatoria, because it takes several months to go through the CONACYT process and get approved and get your letter of scholarship from them. And then we start processing your student visa. So the first convocatoria is very important. Per year, so about $20,000. For non-strategic areas, you need more loans, crédito, from FUNED and FIDER. And FUNED can give up to $15,000 at a low interest loan. I think it's 3.75 interest right now. And FIDER, which is a trust held by the Bank of Mexico, they give up to 200,000 pesos per year to use for whatever you want, tuition or living expenses. And that has 0 interest while you're studying and a grace period when you graduate, and then you pay back like 2% interest. So if you're in a non-strategic area, you have to combine several sources of funding: the loans, the low interest loans, and the $20,000 from CONACYT. And I forgot to mention the scholarships from USC Price, which are $15,000 over 2 years. So $7,500 per year. So if you add it all up, you can cover your expenses. If you're in a strategic area, and currently we have a student who's in a strategic area, he is in urban planning, in environmental, and he's specializing in environmental issues. And environment and energy are currently strategic areas. Health is a strategic area. So if you qualify for a strategic area, they give much more money at CONACYT, which is 300,000 pesos per year for tuition, and the same amount, 13,915 for living expenses and health insurance per year. So you don't need as much loans, low interest loans. You can go to FIDER. I would recommend FIDER because they have the lowest interest loan. And they will be offering many more loans next year for Mexican students. So I will be at your service throughout the year. I work closely with these institutions and with students to help them through the process. The first stage is to look over your own interests and decide on a program and apply to one. And when we give you a letter of admission, we'll give you more information about how to take the next steps. And then for the Programa de Funcionarios de Alto Nivel, I believe the funding is 100%. Price still offers this scholarship to you. Are there any questions? It's a lot of information. Would you ask into this, because there are people online?
The question is like the typical funding for the average program and the average area is around like 50% of the total tuition, more or less?
It's hard to say what the average funding is because this is a new program. We only have one student, and he has the higher award from CONACYT and the full amount from Price. So he has full tuition, right? Plus living expenses, which is, but only about $14,000 living expenses. That's not quite enough to live on. So I believe he also took the loan out from FIDER, which they wouldn't give him the full 200,000 pesos because he doesn't need it. They would give him maybe $6,000 per year, which is good because that's enough to live on and he has less to pay back. But that's our only student right now in this program, and it's a very good case. He's got full funding. The idea is they will give you $7,500 for tuition. So let's say each year, sorry, thank you, each year. So say it's a program of 40 credits. It costs $64,000 for 2 years, $32,000 per year. Oh, I should have used this calculator. Subtract 7,500 from PriceSchool. You could get about $6,000 or $23,000 from CONACYT if you win the CONACYT award. And that's for tuition. So that just about covers tuition if you get the higher, wait, 32. It just about covers tuition if you get the higher award, but it doesn't cover tuition if you get the lower award. You need to get more loans if you get the lower award. Sure, that's a good point. There's another funding agency, the Fulbright, Comexos, and they will give you $25,000 to use for whatever you want. And I believe that if you were a good student, good enough to get into a good school like this, you could also be competitive for the Fulbright Award. Do you know the deadlines for Fulbright?
They have 2 calls for the Fulbright reward. They have one previously for your application, like you don't need to apply or be applying to submit for this call. This is their regular call, but they have an extraordinary call that it's with an acceptance letter. So this extraordinary call with the acceptance letters for the ones applying right now, attending school next fall, it will open in January. You don't need like the acceptance letter per se. You need to show that you applied, and they will give you up to $25,000, and you can use it in living expenses or tuition or whatever you need. No, you don't have to pay back this money. Thank you.
You do have to return to Mexico. Any more questions? It's very complicated sounding when you just learn it. I've been working on this for several years and I still get confused. That's why I have the calculator. But if you decide to proceed, we're talking about a lot of money. It costs a lot of money, but there are a lot of sources of money to cover your tuition and most of your living expenses.
Right now I'm trying to get my bachelor's degree, so I guess I'm running out of time. So yeah.
Oh, I'll repeat your question. Go ahead.
So what do you recommend?
So your question is about the deadlines. Okay. One thing I want to mention before you'd let you answer is you don't have to graduate before you apply. You can apply now for next year. A lot of people ask that question. But then how do you apply between now and the deadline? I think is the other question.
Yes, you can. You can apply now. In fact, we have a lot of students who are currently getting their bachelor's degree, and many of them won't graduate until May. So you fill out the online application and go through the steps that I had mentioned earlier. Then when you come to USC, you're going to need to show proof that you have a bachelor's degree. And they won't let you register for the second semester unless you can show proof that you have the degree. Okay?
Was that your question, or was your question about the deadlines? Okay. Good. So I have a question. Do they have to have all materials to you by December 15th, or do they mail them by December 15th, or do they have some time afterward?
Well, ideally, they would all be postmarked by December 15, or they would be submitted through the online system by December 15. We realize the GRE and the TOEFL scores, that may be a little bit more difficult. So if you take the December tests, that will be fine. But just don't take the January test, take the December test, okay?
Any more questions? Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, online people. And thank you to Education USA for hosting us.